In today's episode, we take you on a journey aboard a luxurious cruise ship where a joyous celebration of love and commitment tragically turned into a tale of heartbreak. We'll dive into the mystery of a love triangle that led to a shocking turn of events on the open seas. Join us as we navigate the turbulent waters of jealousy, passion, and betrayal in the case of Ray Truscott. In the summer of 2001, as the world was slowly adapting to the new millennium, Ray Truscott, a 53-year-old life insurance analyst from Plano, Texas, was gearing up to celebrate a milestone that many couples dream of, but few achieve: their 20th wedding anniversary. Ray, a father of 3, was respected in his community for his integrity and dedication. He had forged a successful career at New Life Financial, a firm known for its competitive edge in the bustling Dallas-Fort Worth metroplex. A graduate of the University of Texas at Austin, Ray had climbed the corporate ladder through sheer determination and a natural talent for numbers. His colleagues often noted that he was the first to arrive and the last to leave the office, a true testament to his work ethic. Ray's life at home was equally admirable. His wife Dina and their children were the center of his universe. Neighbors frequently saw the Truscott family at community events or heard about their adventures to places like the Grand Canyon or Disney World, the latter featured in a 2001 Disney Vacation planning VHS that had just been released. Ray's personality was a unique blend of the analytical mind of an insurance analyst and the warm heart of a devoted family man. He was known for his dry wit, often quoting the latest Dilbert comic strip that humorously captured the quirks of corporate life. His dreams seemed to be within reach, but life had a different plan. Though not limited to spreadsheets and actuarial tables, Ray dreamed of his children graduating from college and one day living a quiet life in the Texas Hill Country and spending his golden years with Dina. Ray was in high spirits until the moment of his death, telling neighbors that he was looking forward to seeing U2's Elevation Tour concerts later that year. The anniversary cruise was scheduled to depart from Galveston, Texas, aboard the majestic Voyager of the Seas, a Royal Caribbean ship renowned for its luxurious amenities and beautiful scenery. Little did anyone know that this journey, celebrating 20 years of love and devotion, would be his last. On the morning of June 15, 2001, as the Royal Caribbean cruise ship Voyager of the Seas navigated the tranquil waters of the Gulf of Mexico, a disturbing discovery tainted the record of the ship's idyllic voyage. At 7:30 a.m., the body of Ray Trask, a 53-year-old life insurance analyst from Plano, Texas, was discovered by Captain Marcus Caldwell's fishing vessel, the Sea Sprite. The vessel, a common sight in these waters, was out on a routine fishing trip when it came across the horrific scene. The weather was unusually calm for a June morning, with a light breeze, but the crew of the Sea Sprite struggled with their find. Captain Caldwell, an experienced sailor, was startled to see the body floating beside him on the gentle swell, and his first words were immediate action, radioing the Coast Guard. His voice was calm, but he conveyed the gravity of the situation. The crew remained calm and secured the area to preserve the integrity of the crime scene. The discovery caused a stir in the media, with local news channels such as K interrupting their regular programming to cover the incident. The port city, still bustling with tourists flocking to attractions such as Moody Gardens and the recently opened Schlitterbahn water park, became the epicenter of a tragic saga when news of the discovery reached passengers enjoying the ship's ice skating rink, mini golf course, and other facilities, leaving vacationers in palpable disbelief. Many of them were Texans seeking refuge from the early summer heat, but now they were witnesses to a real-life drama unfolding in the midst of their leisure time. The calm morning of June 15, 2001, on board the Voyager of the Seas, was suddenly shattered when the news of Ray Truscott's untimely death reached the captain a few hours later. The ship, a floating city boasting rock-climbing walls and lavish dining halls, was transformed into a somber crime scene. Tasked with investigating crimes in international waters, the U.S. Coast Guard and the FBI quickly dispatched their best investigators to the ship, which was anchored off the coast of Galveston. Texas detectives Karen Henning and George Given were the first to arrive on the scene. Henning, known for her keen intuition, and Given, known for his methodical approach to solving crimes, came aboard the ship with a sense of urgency. A media frenzy had already begun, with outlets broadcasting live updates, stoking public interest and speculation. Detectives made their way to Sturm 7156, the victim's last known location. To their trained eyes, the interior of the room looked peaceful. The bed was neatly made, the personal belongings arranged as if awaiting their owner's return. But the balcony was the opposite. A chair had been overturned. A piece of glass had shattered, its shards catching the morning sun. It was silent testament to the struggle that had taken place. The crime scene was meticulously processed, forensic teams taking fingerprints, combing through fibers and taking DNA samples. Meanwhile, the ship's CCTV footage was seized for examination. As the investigation progressed, Igor's presence was a solemn reminder to the passengers that their idyllic retreat had been breached by violence. In the background, the outside world continued its pace. A faint sound came from the ship's entertainment system, a hit song from the time that had now become the harsh soundtrack to the tragedy. Unable to face the grandeur of the ship or the distractions of the media, the detectives had the daunting task ahead of them of piecing together the final moments of Ray Trask's life and identifying the killer as the voyager of the seas. The investigation into the death of Ray Trask, who sat at anchor as a mere shadow against the June sky, turned to those who were close to him. The victim's wife of 20 years, Dina Trask, 51, became the focus of the intense investigation. Known for her mild-mannered demeanor and her role as a devoted housewife, Dino epitomized the suburban tranquility of Plano, Texas, a city that prided itself on being one of the best places to live in America, according to a feature in CNN Money magazine that year. Dina's life seemed filled with openly affectionate meetings and Sunday family barbecues. Her dreams were of a modest, happy family, a comfortable home, and the joy of watching her children succeed. But beneath the mask of domestic bliss, detectives wondered if a motive for murder was hidden. The interrogation took place away from the prying eyes of the public, who were busy discussing the case on internet forums, a trend that burgeoned in the early 2000s. Detective Henning questioned Dina in a room with a view of the endless ocean. Her responses were peppered with confusion and long silences. She struggled to explain where she was at the time her husband was supposedly thrown overboard. Her alibi that she was asleep in the cabin was hardly supported by any evidence, despite her seemingly clueless character. Dina's reactions during questioning raised suspicions as to whether her attitude was plotting something more sinister or simply the shock of a grieving widow. The detectives wrote down every word and gesture she said, realizing that in cases like these, the truth often hides in plain sight. As the investigation progressed, questions remained about whether Dina Trask was a grieving spouse or an insidious adversary. The investigation into Ray Trask's death intensified as it shifted to the victim's 56-year-old co-worker Bob Hackles. Hackles, a veteran analyst with insurance firm New Life Financial, was aboard the Voyager of the Seas with his family. His outward persona was that of an affable family man, but beneath that mask was a clan dues with ties to Rye that, if exposed, could turn his life upside down. Huckle was on the cruise ship with his Russian wife Anne and their 2 children, ostensibly for entertainment. But investigators suspected his true motives were rooted in a tangled web of secret romantic relationships with the victims. The early 2000s was a time of contrasting attitudes towards such relationships, and while television shows like Will and Grace brought LGBTQ themes into mainstream media, many people still face societal pressure to conform to traditional family structures. During questioning, Huckle remained outwardly communicative, answering questions with measured responses and remaining unfazed as detectives probed for cracks in his composure. They were trying to understand the nature of his relationship with Rye and the possible jealousy or betrayal that drove him to murder. Police approached with a plan. They realized that the success of shows like CSI had a negative impact on murder investigations. They captivated audiences with their depictions of forensic science, raising public expectations for Swift's inconclusive detective work. They scrutinized Hackle's alibi, matching it with witness testimony and security camera footage, determined to uncover whether his Cal was a front for another, more deranged persona. As the investigation deepened, questions arose about how Bob Hackles, the man who shared whispered secrets and stolen moments with Ray Trask, could take the life of the man he loved. On June 7, 2001, 2 days after Ray Trask's body was found, new evidence surfaced on the Voyager of the Seas. The morning was a calm Gulf breeze, and the crew was performing routine maintenance on the starboard side of the ship, when they noticed something unusual lodged in a protruding piece of metal. It was a navy blue piece of fabric, with a distinctive pattern that matched the shirt of Bob Hackles, one of the prime suspects in the case. Its discovery marked a potential turning point in the case. The piece, offering a concrete clue to the investigators in a case that had previously had few leads, was immediately secured and sent for forensic analysis in the hope that it might yield DNA or other material linking the suspect to the crime scene. The media, always thirsty for new angles on the case, began to speculate about the meaning of this development. FBI agents, well versed in the nuances of evidence gathering and its role in case building, treated the discovery with due gravity. The sun-bleached, overcast weather seemed to reflect the uncertainty hanging over the ship. Passengers and crew alike were pondering the significance of the discovery. As news of the shredded cloth reached the mainland, it became a talking point on news shows, with anchors analyzing the latest developments alongside legal experts. The cruise ship, once a symbol of escape and relaxation, became the backdrop for a story as fascinating as a summer blockbuster, with the added weight of real-world consequences. Meanwhile, investigators continued to work meticulously, knowing that in the world of criminal justice, unlike the momentary gratification of winning a game of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, patience and thoroughness are the keys to uncovering the truth. The next chapter of the investigation unfolded when attention turned to 49-year-old Carl Ving. The case is further complicated by Carl, a librarian from Largo, Florida, connected to Ray Trask. A seemingly unassuming man, Carl is revealed to have had a secret romantic relationship with Ray, a fact unknown to both Dina Trask and Bob Hackles, and to the other suspects, in the drama unfolding on Voyager of the Seas. Carl's demeanor contrasted with the lively atmosphere of the ship, bustling with the excitement of vacationing families and couples. His quiet, introspective nature spoke to his deep involvement with Ray. As the FBI delved into his background, they discovered a man who had dreamed of a lifeless, ordinary longing for acceptance in a world that was only just beginning to embrace the diversity of love and relationships. Carl's emotions in the interview room were palpable, fluctuating between anger and deep sadness. For Carl, his dreams of a future with Ray were now irretrievably shattered, and he could not escape the harsh, suspicious gaze now directed at him. His responses to the FBI's tough questions were tinged with despair. He struggled to come to terms with his fateful relationship with his family and its brutal end. As the investigation unfolded, the public followed the case with the same fervor that had been used to unfold the Gary Condit and Chandra Levy stories, scandals that dominated the news. The question on everyone's mind was, could a man named Carl Bing, who sought solace in the quiet corridors of a library, commit a crime like murder? The investigation on Voyager of the Seas culminated with new revelations that pierced the veil of mystery surrounding Ray Trask's death. The victim's secret lover, 56-year-old insurance analyst Bob Hackles, emerged as a traitor and culprit. The evidence painstakingly collected by the FBI irrefutably pointed to a crime of passion, a fatal encounter against the backdrop of the ship grandeur and the Gulf of Mexico. In the vast expanses of Mexico, Bob was a man known for his gregarious demeanor and professional success. Ray's outward life spoke to inner turmoil of dreams of a secret relationship with Ray. Free from the scrutiny of society and the constraints of family, the secret relationship with Ray was shattered by Ray's willingness to abandon Ray for Carl Binns. The relationship angered Ray and Bob, leading to a violent confrontation in which Ray's body was dumped at the bottom of the ocean. The method was as decisive as it was brutal. Bob had pushed Ray off the balcony of their home after a heated argument. The motive was clear: a mixture of jealousy, fear, and the unbearable prospect of losing Ray to someone else. The crime, without weapons or premeditation, was an impulsive act that changed several lives forever. Once the identity of the killer was revealed, the case became the subject of intense media scrutiny. Media outlets such as the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal, which usually focused on the economic downturn and the tax cuts recently introduced by President George W. Bush, now had space to report on Ray's case on their front pages. As the details of the case were sorted out, Bob Hackles, once respected in his professional community, now faced the harsh reality of his actions. His life, once woven with a Ray web, unraveled in moments of uncontrollable rage. Questions of why a man would do such a thing weighed heavy, reminding him of the fragility of the human spirit. The climax of the investigation on the Voyager of the Seas came on the morning of June 20th, 2001. The skies over Galveston, Texas were overcast, a somber reflection of the investigation on board. Bob Hackles, a 56-year-old insurance analyst who allegedly took Ray Truck's life, was taken into custody, and the arrest was precisely executed by the FBI. It was the culmination of days of meticulous investigation and evidence gathering. Hackles, who had remained calm during the interrogation process, met his fate with quiet resignation. There were no dramatic outbursts or violent outbursts. Instead of pleading innocence, Hackles seemed to accept the reality of his situation. Perhaps he knew that the weight of the evidence against him left little room for denial. As Hackles was handcuffed and led off the ship, networks interrupted their regular programming to report on the latest developments, and news of the arrest spread quickly. Passengers enjoying the ship's amenities, such as its casino and Broadway-style shows, silently witnessed the grim reality of justice being served. The atmosphere was a mixture of relief and morbid curiosity. Dinah Trask and her children, who had boarded the cruise to celebrate a milestone anniversary, were left to wrestle with a complex mix of emotions. With Ray's secret life and the identity of the killer revealed, the family was torn apart, facing a future marred by tragedy and public scrutiny. Set against the backdrop of post-2000 America and grappling with the tremors of a changing global landscape, the trial of Bob Hackles began with the gravity befitting a case that had taken the global economy by storm. The courtroom, under the national spotlight, was often the setting for a drama of human conflict, packed with reporters, each competing to satisfy the public's appetite for the latest information. It was not dissimilar to the frenzy surrounding Apple's iPod, released later that year, a device that promised to revolutionize the way we consume media. Prosecutor Angelo Alelia, a veteran defense lawyer known for his relentless pursuit of justice, presented a tale of betrayal and jealousy that led to Ray Trask's tragic death, portraying Hackles as a man whose mask of normalcy was shattered by the revelation of a secret relationship and its possible end. The defense, led by the astute Janet Pringles, appealed to the jury's sympathy by portraying Hackles' actions as those of a man pushed to his limits by emotional turmoil, similar to characters in The Sopranos, a hit primetime drama that delved into the complexities of the human psyche as the trial progressed. The victims' families said their presence in the courtroom was a silent testament to their loss, and the emotional toll taken on Dinah Trask and her children was palpable, their grief compounded by the media frenzy that covered their personal tragedy. The verdict was unanimous, guilty, and the sentence handed down with looks of indignation. A punishment that some found harsh, others lenient, but all perceived as an irreversible conclusion to a series of irrevocable choices in the courtroom, which had been a crucible of tension, released a collective breath as justice was pronounced. The aftermath of the verdict rippled throughout the truss. The reactions of family and friends are a mosaic of relief and innocence, a case that unfolded as the country reeled from the storm of events surrounding the Enron scandal, leaving an indelible mark on all involved in the case, following a trial that ended with Bob Hackles' guilty verdict. Individuals connected to the Voyager of the Seas tragedy plead for the difficult process of moving forward. The Truss family sought solace in the routine of everyday life as their public, private grief was resolved. Dinah Trask, who once planned the anniversary celebration, faces the difficult task of reconstructing the family's world without Ray. The children suffer the double loss of their father and the untainted image of their family. Detectives Karine Henn and George, who helped piece the case together in law enforcement, both continued their careers at the FBI. Each carries the burden of the Truss case as a solemn reminder of the past and the future. The hidden complexities of human relationships. The case tested their resolve and proved their dedication to uncovering the truth. Carl Bing returned to his life in Largo, Florida, his brief and secret love affair with Lai now over, the details of which are buried in court documents and news archives, and he asked to remain anonymous, and return to the quietude of his profession, away from the sensationalism that had briefly gripped his public attention. The world outside, meanwhile, carried on at its relentless pace. The stock market, which had been in a state of flux since the dot-com bubble burst, continued to ebb and flow, a reflection of the nation's economic uncertainties. Brands like Nokia and Motorola dominated the mobile phone market, their devices a ubiquitous presence in the hands of those eager to stay connected in an increasingly digital age. As the years passed, the memory of the case faded from the public consciousness, replaced by new headlines and scandals. Yet for those directly affected by the tragedy, the echoes of the past remained. They moved through their lives each day a step further from the events on the ship, but forever aware of the indelible mark left by the case of Ray Trusk. As we close this chapter of our channel, we're reminded of the unpredictable nature of the human heart. A voyage that began with celebration ended in tragedy, leaving us to ponder the line between love and obsession. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the depths of passion and peril. Until next time, keep a watchful eye on the mysteries that surround us.